another impulse purchase that I have been browsing as well on my downtime has been getting like a massive paddling pool in the back garden. We don't have any
Do
children.
you know what? It's funny you say that. I saw a friend of mine's got one and she sent me a photo and I was like, do you know what?
We want one.
I'm tempted by that. And then you think, well, actually, how often would you use it? I guess you put warm water in it. It should be fine, shouldn't it?
I swim in the sea. I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. More for us.
Yeah, more for us.
More for
more for you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our series here on the Humble Penny called How Much Do They Make series. And we are super excited today to have a guest, Patsy, who is a railway engineer. I've never come across a railway engineer
Neither
before.
have I.
Hi, Patsy.
Hey, Patsy.
Hi, Ken. Hi, Mary. How you doing?
Yeah, we're good.
Great.
We're good. We're really excited to have you on. Could you just start by actually telling everybody, they're probably as curious as we are, what on earth is a railway engineer and how did you get into this particular career?
Well, I think we've just got to say it's someone who works on the railway. What more can I say? So I specifically look at the railway infrastructure. Within the railway infrastructure kind of companies and stuff, we generally split ourselves either into looking after the track, looking after the signals, looking after the buildings and bridges, or looking after the what we call A&P assets, which is electrification and plant. And that includes both your overhead lines, so the things in the sky which get power to the trains, and also the systems which get power to your signals, to your lights, and any other type of electrical equipment that we've got on the trackside, or also on stations. So me personally, I focus on overhead lines.
So tell us, how exactly did you get into becoming a railway engineer? So tell us about your journey, your education, and your career to date.
Yeah, so actually, I wanted to be a maths teacher. I love maths, I love the solving problems aspects of it, and I always liked that there was one answer as well. There was no debate. So I did my A-levels, and I actually really struggled to get onto a maths degree, because actually after the first year of A-levels I got a D in maths, and everyone was like, oh, that's the one you're going to drop, you're going to keep going with the other ones, and I was like, no, I'm going to keep doing the maths. By the end of A2 I managed to pull that up to an A in my maths,
Okay.
which I'm very proud of.
Well done.
And I went off. Thanks. And then I went off and I did my maths degree. And as a strong kind of feminist, I kind of don't like the fact that I then stumbled upon engineering because I started going out with one. So I went from having not really knowing what engineering is or what variation it could be to being surrounded by them. And at the same time, I was kind of hearing the discussions that people were having around teaching and the high dropout rate, and that it was a lot of politics and other things besides teaching, which was kind of causing that. And I didn't think that was something that I really wanted to get into. So I was starting to look at other careers anyway. So this is when I started considering engineering as a career choice. But at this point, I was already 2 years into a maths degree with 1 year left. And it was a really anxiety-filled time for me. It was like, oh, do I start another degree? Do I do an apprentice? That I started when I was 18. And I had a lot of doubt about university in general. And then this is a lot of deep-seated feelings of like, oh, why do we make people choose what they want to do when they're 17, 18 years old? Absolute nightmare. But anyway, after trying to apply for engineering jobs and they saying, nah, I managed to get a master's, get enrolled in a master's course at Newcastle University doing mechanical engineering. It was a 12-month-long course and I really enjoyed it. I actually found it easier than my maths course. It was still some elements of, you just got to have good friends, really. I definitely found that with maths degree as well, and general education. You just got to have good friends around you. Once I graduated from that, I still didn't have a job. There was a consultancy business based at the university, and I asked for some work experience. Initially, I was offered, I think either about 10 weeks of work experience, and I ended up being there for 3 months. And then I went and I worked at a hydraulic excavator manufacturing company based in Durham, but I didn't really enjoy that very much as well. But luckily while I was there, I was offered a job at my current company, which is Network Rail.
Interesting.
Haven't told them I'm doing this, so hopefully they're all right with it. So I joined that as a graduate mechanical engineer.
Okay.
Since then, I have worked in maintenance in an area we call intelligent infrastructure, which is looking at using data that we get from different remote monitoring devices and use it to create a more data-driven railway. And then I went back to maintenance, and now I'm what we call in the route asset management team. A very long-winded journey is how I got there.
So you've kind of touched on this a little bit. Do you want to just share for us what a typical day in the life of a railway engineer might look like? Like from when you wake up to when you kind of log out in the evening, maybe. I'm assuming you finish in the evenings. What typically happens?
So what happens? At the minute, it's super varied. And to say that what I do is what every other railway engineer does is an absolute lie. So a day-to-day for me, I am currently looking at ways that we can geographically map our electrification plant assets on the railway line. Alongside that, there's a system on my patch that is not widely used. So we don't have a good way of ordering spares for it. This is a long historical issue. So what I'm doing is a lot of phone calls, a lot of digging, trying to get the right parts so that we can actually fix this system. And that's just a couple of projects that I'm kind of working on in the minute. But like I say, on Monday, Sunday afternoon, I'm going up to Scotland to do a training on the system as well. So I actually go out and see it and physically see it. There's also some days where I will go to what we call a delivery unit, which is where like the maintenance-based office is, and I can talk to people who are working on the front line and see what problems they're having and kind of see about what I can do to help fix it.
Great. So tell us, what top 3 things make you a success at what you do? It could be habits, for example. What are top 3 things that make you a success?
One, I would say being curious.
Okay.
There's a lot of things to learn. There's a lot of new technologies coming out, and I think in a lot of industries, you can get into a habit of doing your day-to-day stuff. And that means that you can't really move forward in seeing new things and seeing how you can make improvements. Next one, I would probably say having a bit of grit. In the railway, our railway is hundreds of years old and nothing really works how it should do. There's so many different generations of technology that's been hobbled together. So it can be really difficult to find what you want to find and trying to make something new work. And that's kind of where you need that bit of grit and a bit of resilience, is to kind of push through and try and solve those problems instead of resorting back to doing things that you always do.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one I would say would be an open-minded and a bit of a people person, because the people out there who've got the wealth of knowledge are people who have generally been working on the track for 30 years. So I guess if you have a degree or something, don't expect they know everything. So essentially don't be a bit of a twat and assume that you're better than anyone else because you've got a degree, because in actual fact there's people out there who know more than you ever will, and it's really important that you value that relationship and value their time and their skills.
Totally.
Okay, so thanks for sharing that. What would you say you love the most about what you do?
I love the variation and the opportunity to solve lots of problems. That's very short and sweet. Yeah,
I like it.
It's great. Fantastic. It's fantastic.
So I guess I can expand on that and say that the railway is complex. I mentioned before that we've got different disciplines. So we've got the overhead line. The overhead line hangs above the train, and you think, fine, great. But then you've got track which come along and they say, oof, this track's a bit wobbly, we need to raise it, lower it, move it side to side. But however you move that affects the overhead line, because it's the train is in the pantograph which runs on top of the train, connecting it to the overhead line, has got certain tolerances that it's got to adhere to. So if you move any of that, then it whacks that tolerance out of whack once you move the track. And then you can throw a bridge into the mess. Like I was saying, our railway is hundreds of years old, and bridges weren't designed for electrification, which means that we are trying to get overhead liners as close as possible to the top of the bridge without causing a safety concern. So if you've got a track which is being lifted, a bridge which is too low, then there's not really a lot of room for the overhead line. And that's when you've got to come up with these new solutions to make it all work.
Cool.
That sounds really interesting. So that leads us nicely into the next question we want to ask you, which is, what do you find the most challenging about what you do?
The fact that nothing works. The fact that nothing works and everything is hundreds of years old and it's challenging and there's so many variations and there's so much exactly about what I said about I love about it, I also find challenging about it, and I think that is why I love it.
So let's just talk about money. So, because this is a personal finance channel, people always want to know what other people earn, even though we don't really talk about it in this country culturally. For someone with your type of job and things, in terms of what you do, How much would you typically expect to earn on a monthly basis or even on an annual basis in a role like you've got?
So in my role, I earn £40,000. On a monthly basis, that is, so we get paid every 4 weeks, so I need to actually work this out. So it's about £2,100 a month, I think.
And just to make sure we understand that, is that purely just your basic salary, or is there like a bonus element or anything like that? Because some other careers have other forms of remuneration. It'd just be interesting to know if there's anything else that comes with that type of work.
Yeah, we do get annual reviews, but that is the bonus. Whatever we get is dependent on that. That we don't get any overtime. That is the base.
That's the base salary.
That's all I'm going to get. I would say that there's other areas. So because I'm based kind of more office based, we work 35 hours a week, and we get paid that. If we work a bit more, we still get paid the same, but we do get time in lieu. So like I was saying, I was going up to Scotland. I'm going to have to take, I think I get to take 2 days in lieu because of that, because it's going to take us about 6 hours to get there and back, plus a bit of stop time in the middle. If I was working in maintenance, then they do get enhancements such as overtime rates and night rates as well. But that's part and parcel of what you do. If you work in maintenance, then you can work all the weekends and work nights as much as you want, and you can. And a lot of people in maintenance will do earn more than I do for that reason. But it's what you value, isn't it? I just work Monday to Friday.
Good. So you've got a fairly decent kind of work-life balance for what you do. Does that income vary? Like if someone you live, say, near Newcastle, somewhere thereabouts?
In the company that I work for, we've got what we call role clarity, because it is a arm-length governing body. We've got, for my stage and above, with the set bands that you get paid from, and then you get a London allowance on top of that, but apart from that, it's the same across the country.
So tell us, what is the maximum income potential for somebody who is a railway engineer?
What would I put it at? So I think £60,000 I would expect to be there within the next potentially 5 years. And then it can go up to like 80, potentially even 100k.
Wow. So just thinking, because I've always wanted to ask this question, given you're in this career right now, have you ever just thought to yourself, gosh, I wish I was in another career? Almost like if you were not doing railway engineering, what other career would you be doing? Is there another career that you kind of wish it was something you would be doing, and for what reason?
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So I think going on to one of your later questions that you've got is about personal finances. And I think I am in part in my job because it does pay well. But I do think that I do spend quite a lot of time at my desk. So if I had no financial kind of goals in mind, I would really like to run and operate a campsite or volunteer at a scout activity centre where I can just send children up rock climbing walls and on zip lines all day. Because
that would be so much fun.
Love it.
I mean, I've done it for a few summers, so I do know that being on your feet all day, it makes you wish for your comfy desk chair a little bit. If I ever reach like early retirement, that would be something that I would quite like to spend my retirement days doing.
Cool.
Awesome.
So have you got any plans of actually increasing your income? And if so, in your mind, how do you see that playing out? What are you going to do to make that happen?
I don't have any plans. So I am currently working towards being chartered, so as a chartered engineer. My main aims at the minute is to kind of get a better understanding of what I'm working on and why, and trying to make it work. And also while I'm doing that, I'm hoping to try and build those technical data management skills.
Okay.
So that can be a valuable skill in the future. I don't have direct plans to kind of monetize it right now, and at the minute it's kind of just, I feel like I'm not in a bad position, so I'm not actively pursuing anything more, especially since I've only been in my current role for about 3 months now, so I'm still trying to get the hang of it.
Right.
Makes sense.
So what top 3 pieces of advice would you give to somebody who might want to become a railway engineer like yourself and earn as much as you do and potentially more in the future?
Be curious, have some grit, and I was going to say persevere, but that's kind of the same. I guess I would say, be curious, have some grit, and be open to new opportunities.
Interesting, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, we say that because the guy who we interviewed earlier,
He said the same.
he said the same thing.
Yeah.
He said, be open to your options. Just
Yes.
kind of like go with how life is just taking you. Just go with it, you know. All right, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about personal finances. This is a personal finance channel. Let's talk about, well, how would you describe your current relationship with money, Patsy?
I think my relationship with money is quite interesting. So apart from the last year, I've been moving around quite a lot, and I find it quite difficult to save and manage my money. Thanks to a little bit of the pandemic, everything's kind of slowed down, and it's really given me a chance to look at my finances and what I was spending, and kind of help me have a bit more decision about what I'm spending my money on and why. I've always been quite good with finances prior to that, and I think stability is really key at knowing what's going out and knowing what's coming in.
So what do you think that you learned personally from your parents about money growing up?
So don't overstretch yourself. Don't spend money you don't have. My parents weren't necessarily great with money. So we were put in quite a precarious position. My parents said, well, I say like, oh, they decided to divorce like it was off the top of the hat. But my parents divorced in 2007. Great time for a housing crash in 2008. So we did go through a bit of turmoil, lost the family house and all that jazz.
Goodness me.
So I think like from that period, I kind of learned that I never want to be in a position where I'm dependent on my partner's income. I think my parents also were probably a bit more risky in their investment decisions.
Okay.
So, for example, they bought a flat and they were renting that out at the same time they had the house. My mum had her own business as well, which I think they already had a loan on. And I think kind of from seeing where that goes off, I know there's other people out there who suggest to invest money instead of paying down on your mortgage. But I think from that experience, I think I would probably prioritise kind of paying down a mortgage and getting rid of that. Over,
getting the guaranteed return.
And I think what really kind of convinced me of that when I started reading more about finance was actually David Ramsey, though I know it's quite a controversial figure. Is that
we like David Ramsey.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you like David Ramsey?
Yeah.
There's been some comments that on other financial things, on things other than finance that I think, But anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It essentially said, saying that 100% of homes that are repossessed have a mortgage on them. So if you don't have a mortgage on your home, then like 0 homes
without
that are
a
owned
mortgage.
outright are repossessed.
Yeah.
I think ultimately that's the bottom line for me going forward.
Yeah, no, we completely get that. Like the amount of security we feel we have anyway, living in this house, without, we just know that no one has the right to come and knock on our door and talk rubbish, and you know it's not even going to happen because like this is our home, right?
Right.
So it's one of those things, you know. People don't. I guess some people don't place value on things like that, but for us, it's made us even more risk loving, just knowing that we're not having to worry about our home. So we completely get where you're coming from, actually.
Yeah.
No. So what do you currently spend your money on? Like, you get paid, you're good at managing your money at the moment, but what are you spending money on? How do you actually almost, what's the word I'm looking for? What do you spend on to treat yourself?
So I think I can go through most of the money that I spend on. So I get my money and then I split it. I've got different pots in my Monzo account.
Nice.
I got to put £80 away for fuel. I think £75 is like towards holidays. £60 I put towards presents / Christmas. And then I give myself £200 for a 4-week period to spend on stuff. So that's £50 a week if I want to get a coffee or if I see
Takeaway or something.
Yeah, if I see something on Amazon that I like, which is incredibly dangerous and what I've been trying to cut down on. But I do also have my eye on a dry bag. But I'm hoping that I can get that for our anniversary next month.
Sorry, on a what? I missed that.
A dry bag.
Oh,
It's
a bag.
It's a dry bag, so it's generally made of waterproof material, tarp-like material, and you roll it down at the top. And essentially means that you can put stuff into it, and then you can take it swimming.
Got it.
And not have to worry about your stuff getting wet.
Got it.
Awesome.
Okay. Never heard of that before, so good to hear it.
Lots of outdoorsy stuff. Especially since I've been able to go back up to Newcastle quite a few times. I've been enjoying swimming in the sea, which is it'll just be a bit less stressful if I kind of know that I'm not just leaving my stuff on the beach.
Yeah, it's funny you guys say this. Like, it's so interesting hearing this because we hear. I mean, the person we interviewed previously was also this talk about going to the beach and stuff like that. It's weird because we never talk about stuff like that in this part of the country.
Yeah, I guess it's all down to where you choose to live, right?
Yeah, so
yeah.
it's fascinating that's a part of your life, I guess, and that must carry a lot of value, personal value.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's been really hard doing lockdown. Well, I've been locked down in Warwickshire. I think we're very nearly the furthest part of the country from the sea, and I've grown up in Newcastle, where I live 20-minute drive away from the beach. And there's no open water down here to go swimming. And I'm a northern girl. It's been far too hot.
Nice.
So I'm currently trying another impulse purchase that I have been browsing as well on my downtime has been getting like a massive paddling pool in the back garden. We don't have any
Do
children.
you know what? It's funny you say that. I saw a friend of mine's got one, and she sent me a photo, and I was like, do you know what?
We want one.
I'm tempted by that. It's massive though. It's huge. It takes ages to fill this thing up, but
100%.
I am tempted by it. Yeah. And then you think, well, actually, how often would you use it? I guess you put warm water in it. It should be fine, shouldn't it?
I swim in the sea. I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. More for us.
Yeah, more for us.
More for
more for you.
Yeah.
I've heard if you get a black tarp and tie that over the top, then that can help warm up the water.
Okay.
Interesting. Good to know.
Good tip.
Absorbs the heat.
Can you think of any specific money mistake or regrets that you made growing up and what you learned from it?
Yeah. So I think there was a period of time. So I'd just started. I think I essentially bought a house, bought a car, paid for my first year of car insurance, and went to America for 2 weeks in the space of a year.
Wow.
Whoa.
I did some of that with the help of a credit card.
Right. Okay.
I paid off the credit card last September, and that was an interest-free credit card. So it was interesting. So me and my sister bought the house. This will get into more fun financial things. So me and my sister bought a house together in October 2018 because she broke up with her partner and she couldn't afford to live in the house that she was renting with him by herself. And my mum said, why don't you move in and you can rent together and then you can afford to live there. And I was like, well, I'm living in my dad's walk-in wardrobe because I don't want to pay rent, so I'm not going to go pay rent there. So I suggested, why don't we buy a house together? So we bought a house together. And then I was in the position where my job at the time was maintenance-based, and it's kind of a lot of driving, a lot of getting to really weird places. And I didn't have a car, so I bought a car and got the insurance for that. My car was only £1,100, and I've still got it. It's still going great. I love it. But with insurance, that was probably like £2,000. And then I went to West Virginia for World Scout Jamboree. It's all about the Scouts. Sent children down zip lines for 2 weeks, which is great. But I think even just to go staff, that was like £1,500. And then there's flights on top. So I think that trip all in was probably about £3,500.
Right.
And I think I came back and I think I had about £2,000 on the interest-free credit card. It might have been more than that. It might have been closer to 3. Anyway, it's paid off now.
Well done.
Yeah, well done to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure many people watching this can absolutely relate. Credit cards.
Yeah.
That debt being available, man, it's so easy to spend that money, but so hard to pay it back, you know.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess that's what I was saying about like trying to keep those monthly expenses low. Like I think I was just trying to pay off £200 a month or something, but I was able to still save on the side of that. And I think it just got to the point where I had the same amount, and I was like, it's that thing of like, oh, I could put this somewhere and get interest on it, or I could just use it to pay off this credit card and get rid of that monthly thingy. And I just got rid of it, and it does feel so much better for it to be gone.
Good.
It's interesting when you say credit cards, because I actually did apply for one yesterday. Because now that I think I've kind of got a bit of a better handle on my finance, I'm kind of looking to see how I could use it to get more points.
Yes.
I've got an American Express one that you get AVOS points with.
Do you know what?
So
anyway, I'll let you finish. We've been doing the same thing. But anyway, Karen.
Yeah. So it's just trying to, because at the minute I just say, okay, I've got £50 on my Monzo card for this week, whereas this credit card's got £6,500 limit, and I just need to gently ease myself into it and just make sure that I don't end up spending more because of it.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. So we've done the same thing actually for almost budgeted expenses. We've put it through houses and Amex cards, and we've gotten companion vouchers. I can travel, Mary travel for free, and vice versa. So it's been pretty good doing that. But again, I've got to stress, it has to be for planned expenses, and
exactly. And
otherwise,
obviously, you need to be disciplined with paying it off. Otherwise, you just incur a lot of charges. So only, guys, if you're hearing this, only get one out if you can be disciplined to pay it off monthly and not overspend.
Autopilot. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Patsy, what would you say, given all that we've talked about, is your ultimate financial goal? Like, what's your dream like when you dream? Although I think you've mentioned some of it to us.
I think my ultimate dream would be, so we'd have a house paid off in a house that, because as much as I want to say that we can afford it ourselves, I do want a house that's comfortable with. And at the end of the day, we spend a lot of time in our homes, especially more recently. So I want there to be a large kitchen diner where I can look out into the garden and have that paid off, and also have 3 bedrooms, 3-bed semi with a nice big garden, and have that paid off, and kind of, I guess, have enough investments so that work is almost optional, and then I can kind of choose to do more. So even if I was working part-time in the railway and being able to do, and then have a couple of days where I can volunteer at a scout site or something like that, I think that would be ideal. Another thing that I think I'd quite like to do is volunteering, or even just working a low minimum wage job at like a National Trust site gardening.
Yeah.
Just being able to be outdoors.
Well, one thing we know for sure is that all of that's actually possible, but it does take a while. It does take a lot of intentional planning and things like that. But the beauty is that whether you live in the north or in the south or whatever, it all comes down to what you're spending. So that key point you made there, really about keeping your expenses low, is really the one that people struggle with the most. It's about keeping those expenses as low as you can, whilst maxing out on your income as much as you can, and creating that buffer that gets obviously saved and invested and done as consistently as possible over time. It's going to help you work towards achieving those goals. So it's been great chatting today, Patsy. I've really, really enjoyed getting an insight into what a railway engineer actually does practically. Guys, if you really enjoyed today's video, we'd love for you to make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and support us for the work we're doing here, really highlighting practical careers and giving you guys the insights that you might not ordinarily hear from people day to day.
Thanks again, guys, for watching. Patsy, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patsy.
And guys, as ever, in all things,
be thankful and seek joy.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Bye.